guys, welcome to Sketch Support episode 16. I seriously can't believe that we are at 16 videos in this series already. I feel like my time on YouTube has flown by, and I remember being absolutely terrified to put that first one out there. So it's really cool to be here at number 16. So this month, I've got another new free 2-page sketch for you. And once again, I'm sharing 5 layouts, all based on that one sketch. I think that sketches are one of the most valuable tools you can have in your supply. And it doesn't matter if you are a beginner or an advanced scrapbooker. Sketches can work for anyone at any skill level. There are countless ways you can adapt and customize the sketch to work for you, and you'll get a taste of that with the layouts I share in this video. You can download this free sketch at scrapbookgeneration.com, and I'll add a link down below that will take you right to it. I'll also include a link to the 3-page PDF of 22 bonus sketch examples that show a ton of variations to the free sketch. It's a nice visual for the different ways you can adapt this sketch to work better for your needs. There's also the Sketch Support Challenge and giveaways in our Facebook group. If you want to join us, I'll have a link and the information for that down below as well. So let's get to the purpose of this video and take a quick look at the sketch that I've used as the starting point for each layout in this video. I really thought that this ended up being a fun sketch to play with, and I know I say that all the time, but I love scrapbooking and creating, so I think it's just always fun to me. The bonus sketch examples for this sketch also ended up being some of my favorites so far, and I really want to go back and use them sometime. There's just so much about this design that appeals to me. I like that there is one larger focal photo on one page and then a photo block of multiple smaller photos on the right page. This gives you the opportunity to really highlight a favorite photo here and then add a bunch of supporting photos here. Another thing to note is that there is only one photo on the left page, so you really have a lot of room to change up the size of the photo. So you could definitely add an enlarged photo. You could also change the orientation of the photo, so use a vertical photo instead. You could also adjust the amount of photos by using 2 or even 3 photos instead of just the one. You can easily add what you need photo-wise without having to make any adjustments to accommodate the changes you made. I also like that the background areas on the sketch are kind of opposite of the photos on top of them. On the right page, there are lots of photos and the background is simple with just one large piece. Then on the left, there's one photo with these detailed arrow strips. It's kind of a balancing act between photos and the papers behind them. With these arrow strips, this area could feature some fun customized designs to go with your theme. And if you want to keep them as arrow strips, I know on the sketch they are little arrow pieces grouped together to create a whole strip, but you could always just cut a single strip for the whole piece. All in all, this was a simple and fun sketch design to work with, and I hope you all enjoy using it as well. This is one of the layouts that I followed the sketch, and you can see that, but I definitely made it my own with some changes to work with different photo sizes and then the papers I had picked out. I had every intention of following the sketch very closely with the papers, but each and every pattern paper I picked out, I happen to only have one sheet of. I always argue with myself that I don't have to buy 2 sheets of every pattern, but it's situations like this that makes me wish I did. That background piece on the sketch is 14.5 by 8.5 inches total, and you definitely need 2 of the same paper to create it as it is on the sketch. So Because I only had one sheet of each pattern I had selected, that left me with no way to create that large background piece with one pattern paper. I had to come up with a different game plan, and my solution was to use vertical strips of several pattern papers to cover the same area instead of one big piece. Sometimes when supplies are limited, you have to find ways to group together smaller pieces to create larger designs, and that's exactly what I did here. What I really wanted to do was use the wooden paper that I ended up using for the arrow strips for the background piece, and then these colorful pattern papers for the arrow strips. But after realizing I was limited on the papers, I decided to swap them. I had more of the patterns than I did the wooden paper, so it felt like my best option. And honestly, I'm really glad it worked out this way. My photos are all very similar, and they are close-ups with very little variety in color. That red shirt and his red hair are the dominant colors. So they ended up working really well on top of all of these colors and patterns without getting lost in all of that. For my arrow strips, I opted to do the individual arrow pieces grouped together to make a strip. You could easily make these on a die cutting machine, and I would have, but I had already cut the full arrow strips and then made the choice to switch to the smaller arrow pieces after that. So I went in and cut those strips into smaller pieces. I'll show you really quick how I did that. I always like to show solutions for those that don't have access to die cutting machines, and you can actually make these little pieces pretty quickly. First, cut the strip to the size that you want. I cut mine to 1 by 8.5 inches. Now cut a small strip of scrap paper for a template. It will need to be the same width as your strip. I'm using a 1 by 3 inch strip of cardstock. Next, cut a point at the end of your template piece. I like to use my hexagon punches to create the point. Then you place the template on top of the strip and trace the point, and then repeat this all the way up the strip. I just eyeballed the spacing of the points, trying to get them as close as I can to equal, but you could use a ruler if you wanted them to be exact. To cut them out, I cut one side first from edge to point. Then I turn the strip around and cut the second lines from edge to point. And now you have all of these little individual arrow pieces that you can group together to create these arrow strips. For my photos on this layout, I had 6 vertical 3 by 5 inch photos, which is quite a bit different than the photos on the sketch. But I feel like this sketch is very adaptable to different photo sizes. On the left side, there's a lot of room on the sketch to add more photos, which means there are countless ways you can adapt this sketch to fit whatever photo sizes and amounts you have. I decided to use 3 of my photos grouped together, slanted and overlapped. And you can see that I've got a lot more photos taking up space on this layout versus the sketch, but you can still see the details of the sketch clearly. It really took nothing away from the sketch design, even though much more of it is covered. On the right side, I arranged the photos in a straight line, similar to the photo block. This block ended up being only 1 inch shorter than the block on the sketch, so it totally works without any big changes. I did make a few small changes, moving elements around to better fit what I was working with. Since the photos on the left do end up overlapped onto the arrow strips more, I made some changes to the stars that were on those strips. I moved the largest star embellishment over closer to the title. I also moved my journaling from the right page to the left page. With the change in photos on the right page, I had eliminated the journaling block. At first, I had thought I would just put it above the photos on the right page, but I really liked the way it fit above the photos on the left page, so I moved it there along with some more of those star embellishments. What's funny about this layout is that the paper arrangement here is exactly what I wanted to do with the first layout, but I ran into that paper limitation issue. To me, this sketch works wonderfully with using a more subtle pattern for that large background piece and then some fun, bright, or boldly patterned paper pieces for the arrow strips. It helps all the photos because they are on that large background piece to really shine. And then you have this more detailed and busier design over here as an accent. I was really happy that I got to do that with this layout. And of course, I'm not saying that this sketch can't be used in the opposite manner. I think my first layout shows that. But I just really had this vision of the wood paper background with fun patterns for the strips. And I'm so happy that even though it didn't work out that way on the first layout, I got another chance to see that vision through. And that's why it's fun to use sketches more than once. You get many chances to customize it and play around with the details. I knew right away with this sketch that I wanted to create a layout with columns of small shapes in place of those arrow strips. My original plan was for the columns to follow the same appearance as those arrow strips in how they are arranged, with each strip staggered. But I just couldn't ever seem to get an arrangement with these hearts and staggered columns that I liked. It just wasn't working out and coming together the way I wanted. And I think it all came down to the size of the heart I used. If I had gone with a smaller heart, I think it would have worked out much better with the staggered design. But since I had already punched out all of these hearts, I decided to roll with the punches and adapt my game plan. I switched from staggered columns to even columns that line up with the large background piece. And I really ended up liking the way this came together. So I was glad that my game plan changed. I also added in some smaller hearts punched from the same wood paper as the large background piece to help tie it all together. As a finishing touch, I added hand stitching in coordinating colors to each heart. You'll see me do this often with punch shapes. I just always love adding that stitched detail to them. With this set of photos, I had 5 6 by 4 inch photos. For the left page, I was all set and didn't have to worry about cropping anything down. But I had to find a way to adjust some things and make this larger photo size work in place of the 3 by 3 inch photos. And I also had one less photo to work with compared to the sketch. My make it work choice was to crop my photos down to 3.5 inch squares, which is the smallest I wanted to go with these photos. And then I arranged them in a block similar to the photos on the sketch. Since I had less photos and bigger photos, it changed the look of the photo block and it kind of lost that balance it had on the layout by not stretching to the right more. I decided to create a little journaling cluster on the right side of the block to help fill in the rest of that space. I used 2 tags layered on top of each other, and then I added my journaling strips on top of the top tag. For my embellishments, I used more of those punched hearts with the stitching detail along with some foam arrow stickers, some smaller punched hearts, and a few word stickers. This layout was definitely a challenge for me. It's one of those that it really looks nothing like the sketch, but I promise it definitely started there. This was a situation where I had a vision and a plan, and none of it came together the way I wanted. I got super caught up in wanting to recreate the silly string from the photos, and it was just going nowhere. And so I had to abandon that idea and basically regroup and come up with a different course of action. It was one of those things that you get really excited and really fixated on an idea that you end up finding just isn't going to work, but you can't seem to let it go. So I finally had to walk away and come back later. Let's start with a look at the photos first, because that's a big reason why things came together the way they did. I used more photos and different photo sizes, and that really changed things up a lot, along with the addition of some different elements. With this set of photos, I have 8 3x4 inch photos and 1 4x4 inch photo. On the left page, I used the 4x4 inch photo and 2 of the 3x4 inch photos. There's only the one photo on the sketch on that whole left page, so there's really a lot of room to work in more photos or larger photos, whatever you need there. This side was the easy adjustment. On the right page, it really kind of evolved into something so different than what I had started with in mind. Originally, I was going to arrange the photos very closely to what you see on the sketch in a large photo block together with a journaling block. But then I came across the pattern paper with the Hello Life strip, and things just kind of started going in a completely different direction. I decided to eliminate that large background piece on the sketch and let the photos, the strip, and some 3x4 inch cards become this larger block, taking the place of the background piece on the sketch. My top row of that block has 2 3x4 inch photos, my journaling block, and then I cropped a photo down to 2¼ by 3¼ and added a 3x4 inch photo mat. For the bottom row, I basically copied the top row, except I used a 3x4 inch quote instead of a journaling block. In the middle, I have the Hello Life strip and then some small stripe strips. And then I added some stars and wooden arrows. On the left page, I made a pretty big change to the design of the papers. I took that larger star on the left and blew it up to become the background for my photos. I knew with this sketch that I wanted to play around with using a large shape in place of the vertical arrow strips. I had first thought that my photo block on the right would not extend to the right edge, but instead 2 photos would be on the left page, so it would look really similar to the large background piece on the sketch, and then my large star would fill in the rest of the left page. But I had so many photos that I had to find a different way to make it work. I used my silhouette to cut out 3 large stars in 3 different pattern papers. I layered them together and then added a stitch border. I wanted the star to be large enough that you could still see that it was a star after the 3 photos were added on top. I still wanted to include some arrow strips, so I added a few smaller ones to the left of the large star. I also added a wooden frame to one photo and more of the smaller star embellishments that are the same as the ones on the right page. The biggest change you probably notice right away with this layout is that I removed that large background piece and then extended the arrow strips across both pages. I love creating big backgrounds with lots of smaller pieces, and strips are definitely one of my favorite go-tos for doing that. I just really love the look of lots of strips. All of the strips are the same size and I arranged them staggered and some are overlapped onto others. You can see that I've followed a pattern both with the arrangement and the order of colors. I like to do this to have both balance within the arrangement of the design and the colors of the design. I also added in a few arrow strip die cuts that are cut out of white paper to edge the photos and to be part of my 3 embellishment groupings. I added some hand stitching as a border on them to help them stand out. Plus, I love the texture stitching adds to details like this. Each set of these arrow die cuts has a large star with stitching, some word stickers, and then a few smaller accent stars. And I have to tell you, I really enjoyed creating with this color combo. I pulled the colors from Jackson's shirt and used a variety of different patterns and shades of those colors. It often feels like there isn't much to choose from for boyish layouts, and I felt like this color combo ended up being such a fun combo for a boy layout. I was really happy with the way all of the colors came together. It makes me want to use this color combo again. I added extra photos on both pages. For the left page, I had 2 4x6 inch photos and I wanted to include them both. I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's lots of room on the left page of this sketch to add extra photos if needed without having to adjust really anything. It was very easy to make these 2 photos work. For the right page, I had the 3x3 inch photos, but I had 3 more than the sketch does. And I was determined to make them work because I love all of them. Originally, I had planned on simply moving the block up and adding a 3rd row of photos. However, I came across these little Polaroid style frames in my stash and I really wanted to use them. The words on them are cut out so you can add any color to them to help them fit the colors of your layout. And I thought they were so cute and I was just absolutely determined to make them work. I added a frame to each photo and then arranged the photos so that they are all slanted and overlapped. Then to make sure each photo frame stood out, I added a stitched border on each one in the same green and blues as my papers are. Then to add lots of detail to the photo block, I added lots of stars and some word stickers. The last detail I changed is swapping out the journaling block for journaling strips. To help the strips stand out, since I had printed on white cardstock and I was placing them partially on white cardstock, I added a little bit of blue ink around the edges just to give a little bit of definition. I always like to show that you aren't limited by the size of the sketch. And when it comes to using sketches for different sizes of layouts, going from a 2-page sketch to a 1-page layout is, in my opinion, the easiest. You usually have 3 easily available options. Use the left side, use the right side, or use a combination of the left and right side. Of course, there are more options and possibilities depending on the sketch, but those 3 are the main, most common approaches to converting a 2-page sketch into a 1-page layout. For my layout, I decided to use the left side of the sketch as my inspiration, minus that smaller section of the large background piece. I didn't feel a need for that on this layout since the main purpose of that large background falls on the right page. Now, I definitely went theme extreme with this layout. I often love to find ways to transform elements on sketches into big themed designs. You could probably go through any of my sketch support videos and see that. Theme heavy or big themed elements seems to be the place where I most enjoy creating. I love pushing my creative brain to come up with ways to incorporate the theme of my layout into the design. I found this really cute Paige Evans lemon slice cut file, this large lemon piece here, and I decided to use it in place of the arrow strips. While it doesn't look anything like the strips, it covers close to the same general area as the strips do, so it works. Whenever I get a little crazy with a sketch, I aim for things being positioned in the same general area, and when you do that, it usually all comes together without needing special adaptations or adjustments. It doesn't look the same, but it fits the same. I cut the lemon outline in yellow and then backed each wedge in a different pattern paper. Then I backed the whole thing with the white and yellow dotted paper. And to really highlight the outline of the lemon slice, I added some hand stitching along the whole die cut. That's my favorite technique to help add detail and attention to something. I knew I was going to use the big lemon slice immediately after I picked out my pictures, but I wasn't sure what else I wanted to do with this design beyond that. And luckily, I happened to remember that I had created a lemon layout last year, and I had kept all of the leftover lemons that I had cut with my silhouette. I always seem to overcut whenever I'm creating cluster designs because I never know just how many die cuts I want to use. So I had quite a bit of those lemons left over, and they were so perfect for this layout. And I had actually used some of the same papers, so they all matched and coordinated quite well. This looks like a lot of detail and like it would have taken a lot of time, but all of these lemon pieces were ready to go, so it came together pretty fast. I arranged the lemons all around the curved edge of the large lemon slice. I have some that are flat on the layout, and they have been cut with the same curve of the edge of the lemon slice so that I could place them right up against the edge and give that appearance that they are tucked underneath. I didn't want to actually tuck them under there because they are 3 papers layered together, so that really was just too much bulk to tuck under something that's flat on the layout. I adhered a few lemons with foam adhesive along with some punched hearts to go with my Lemon Love title. To finish out the detail on this cluster design, I added some small lemons that have been punched from a pattern paper, some tiny little hearts, and some Nuvo jeweled droplets. I also have a similar cluster near my title just below my photos. For my photos, I had 3 2.5 by 3.5 inch photos that I wanted to use for this layout, and while there's quite a bit more than what you see on the left side of this sketch, there's plenty of room to accommodate a few more. I overlapped and tilted them so that they come somewhat close to the same placement as the 6 by 4 inch photo on the sketch, so that was an easy solution. The last change I made was for my journaling. Since the 2-page sketch has the journaling on the right side and I had used the left side, I had to find a new home for my journaling. The easiest place to me was just above the photos. To help the white journaling strips stand out, I added a yellow mat to each one. That's all for this episode of Sketch Support. Don't forget to come join us in the Sketch Support group where you can play along in the challenge and possibly win a giveaway. Or if you just want to come see all of the layouts that everyone creates, you can do that too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.